Hello, this is Phillip welcoming you to the 1846th edition of the Enfield Talking Newspaper, Dateline the 8th of March 2012. The readers this week were Audrey, Elizabeth and John, with Dave on the controls. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of technical trouble with our master tape this week, and so this is Phillip reading and on the controls with a replacement tape, which we very much hope you receive. The items that I'll be reading come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette, the Enfield Advertiser, and the Enfield Independent, and remain their copyright. Local stories this week include I Feel Let Down, Victim of Gang Attack Wants Police to Do More, and Hall Targeted by Lead Thieves, Raiders Strike as Renovation Work Carries On at Mansion. First of all, a quick note about some special items of news and advance notice of our AGM, which will be held on the 30th of April 2012, and that'll take place as usual at the Park Avenue Disability Centre at 7:30 p.m. There'll be further information in the coming weeks, including details about travel arrangements if you need them. As always, if you're experiencing any problems receiving your Enfield Talking newspaper, please phone Diane de Jersey on 020-8805-6578. That's 020-8805-6578. She's your listener's representative and will be happy to help you. At the end of side 2, please remember to turn over the address label in your postal packet, put the cassette into the packet, and return it to us as soon as possible, in readiness for the next edition. And now on to the first item of local news. Council chiefs are increasingly desperate to clamp down on lead thieves in the borough after a spate of raids on a Jacobean mansion in the midst of a multi-million-pound revamp. 40 Hall in 40 Hill, Enfield, which has been awarded more than £3 million from the Heritage Lottery Fund for renovation of the extensive grounds and historic interiors, has been raided 3 times in the past year by thieves desperate to cash in on the high price of scrap metal. They stole new lead from one part of the 17th century mansion under renovation, stripping the material from the roof of the south porch just 4 days after it had been painstakingly reconstructed. They struck again 1 week later, making off with their loot in a van. The raids in January came just under a year after robbers first targeted 40 Hall, a Grade 1 listed building, in February 2011. Security around the mansion has been ramped up following the disgraceful attacks, and Enfield Council is pleading with witnesses who may have seen the thieves drive off to contact police. There's also mounting concern that security guards have been threatened and intimidated by thieves, who are intent on removing the lead in order to sell it on quickly to unscrupulous scrap metal dealers for a fast profit. Bambos Charalambos, the council's cabinet member for leisure, slammed the robbers and condemned the attacks as disgusting vandalism. He said, "It is disgraceful. Every time we have to replace the lead, this costs money, which we then cannot spend on other vital services. Someone must know something about this, or have been offered lead at bargain prices. If anyone knows about these thefts, I urge them to contact the police. It's not just us losing the lead. Every time the lead is ripped off, it destroys the fabric of the building further. We're determined to do everything we can to stop this happening." A man who filmed a teenager attacking him outside his home says he feels totally ignored by the police. Michael Glover, aged 65, who suffers from depression, was struck outside his house in Burncroft Avenue, Enfield, last Thursday. After checking his elderly neighbour was not alarmed by the 14-strong gang he could see approaching the estate. The victim, who recorded the lead-up to the attack on his video camera, was rushed by ambulance to Chase Farm Hospital in the Ridgeway, Enfield, with serious head injuries. Mr. Glover, who lives alone with his dog, says he regularly films gang members on the estate in case they're causing trouble. He said he was unable to capture the attack on camera as the boy struck him from behind, but the film continued to roll while he was being hit. Mr. Glover has handed his memory card to the police, but is not confident that his footage will be enough to convict the attacker, even if he is known to the authorities. Mr. Glover said, "I saw all these heads coming from above the fence. I was filming them, and then I felt this dong going through my head, and my whole body went flat. The impact of the blow meant Mr. Glover fell to the pavement, smashed his cheekbone, and bruised the area around his left eye. A woman from the estate, whom Mr. Glover does not know, called the police at approximately 6:40 p.m. after seeing him collapsed on the floor. The victim, who has not worked for 10 years due to depression, said the teenager questioned why he was filming the group before hitting him over the head with a metal object. He's received 3 stitches to close the open wound, which he believes was caused by a hammer. Mr. Glover was released from hospital after being treated because he wanted to go home to feed his dog. He said his attacker looked between the ages of 15 to 17 years old and frequently intimidates him by hanging around in a gang in the corridors of his block of flats. Mr. Glover, who has lived in his rented flat for 3 years after moving from Edmonton, said, "I'm getting no support from the police. I'm just going to have to deal with this myself. I feel totally ignored. There aren't enough police patrolling the estate, and it's making these youths hang around." The pensioner, who says he's popular among other people living in the flats, said, "I look out for all the people on this estate, and they come to me with any problems." He said teenagers often hang around the estate to drink alcohol and smoke drugs. According to Mr. Glover, many of them are from other areas and have found the access code to his block, which means they linger around in corridors causing trouble. The police are investigating the incident, and no arrests have been made yet. A suspected arson attack on a restaurant in Palmer's Green has left its owner devastated. Nisi, a Greek restaurant in Alderman's Hill, was gutted by a fire last Wednesday after a man broke through the front window and set the building alight at around 5:30 a.m. It took 10 firefighters to put out the blaze, which police are treating as suspicious, and left the restaurant badly damaged with glass and rubble strewn across the tables and floor. The owner of the restaurant, which opened 2 years ago, was too upset to comment, but told the Enfield Independent he was devastated and said he had no idea why his business had been targeted. The suspect was caught on a neighbouring store's CCTV wearing a black balaclava and can be seen breaking through the front window. Enfield Police is appealing for anyone with information to call 020-8345-4587. That's 020-8345-4587. An Edmonton school, which marked its 100th birthday last week, has hailed its centenary celebrations a huge success. The 3 days dedicated to 100 years of St Edmund's Catholic School in Hertford Road included a mass, a fun day, and an open day to reunite former students and members of staff. On Thursday, the Mayor of Enfield, Councillor Christiana During, attended an hour-long Thanksgiving Mass at St Edmund's Catholic Church. The service, which started at 1:30 p.m, was led by Archbishop Vincent Nichols, and children from all years sang songs and read short prayers written by teachers. The service, which fell on St David's Day, also celebrated St David, the patron saint of Wales, and included prayers written about daffodils, the country's national flower. On Friday, the school hired the hall in St Edmund's Catholic Church to make room for the children to learn circus skills. The pupils, from reception to Year 6, learned how to balance peacock feathers on their bodies, juggle, and use a diabolo. A bouncy castle was also hired by the school, with children able to bounce for 45 minutes a time, split into each year group. Deputy Head Teacher Jackie Johnston said, "It was fantastic. The day was a huge success. All 3 days went really well. We were so lucky. It took a lot of work, but it was definitely worth it. The kids were given plastic wristbands with our motto, love, care and share. They were all very proud of their school." On Saturday, more than 500 people turned up at the school's open day to enjoy old photographs illustrating how the school has changed over the past 100 years. Mrs. Johnson said it was very emotional and lots of people met after not seeing each other for very many years. She thanked Asda in Enfield for providing fruit for the children and tea, coffee and sugar for the guests on Saturday. She said the school will organise a celebratory event to mark the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, although not on such a large scale. Mugs and T-shirts were also on sale to mark the school's 100th year in Enfield. A cheerleading troupe, which just won a national competition, is already setting its sights on winning again in Northern Ireland later this month. The senior squad in Enfield Blaze All-Star Cheerleaders took first place at the UK Cheerleading Association's competition in Manchester last month. The team, made from 14 to 16-year-olds, are already in training for the Northern Ireland Schools Championship on Saturday, the 31st of March. The squad, which has more than 70 members, comprises 5 groups of different levels and ages from 4 to 50 years old. A team for parents of the cheerleaders who want to get involved in the game was set up 3 years ago. The 12-strong team will also compete in the Northern Ireland competition. Karen Adlam, aged 46, is part of the parent cheerleaders and has a 16-year-old daughter called Louise in the senior squad. She said, "We have to work as a team, which is a really good thing for the younger people in the team, as they realise that not everything is about you." The teams will fly to Belfast on Friday, the 30th of March, for the national competition, stay in a hotel together, and take a trip to the Titanic exhibition as a treat. Labour councillors said Enfield would weather the storms of the economic downturn as they ratified the new budget on Wednesday last night. With £11.7 million of savings in the 2012-13 budget, the Labour group said they were on course to make savings totalling £46 million this term, without the need to cut frontline services. However, the Conservative group said prudence on their part during the previous administration had allowed Labour to reap the benefits now. The budget was approved after all Labour councillors voted in favour and the Conservatives abstained. Speaking at the meeting, Councillor Doug Taylor said, "This is a costed, progressive, realistic and imaginative budget, which is no easy task in the current climate of Conservative cuts. We have £13 million in reserves, and our external auditors have found our financial position strong and well placed to weather the storms. We have kept our libraries open and bin collections weekly. We have secured £1.6 million from the Outer London Fund for our town centres. We managed the aftermath of the riots with our own panel, and we have invested £8 million in highways and infrastructure. Council tax has been frozen for the 3rd year in a row after the council took a one-off government grant of £3 million, the equivalent of a 2.5% rise on last year's council tax. However, Mr Taylor said the budget had suffered from grant damping, which saw £8 million of government money taken from Enfield and given to other London boroughs thought to need it more. "I would gladly trade in the £3 million grant for the £8 million we lost because of damping," he said. The Conservative group placed very little criticism of the budget itself at the door of the current administration, and instead said Labour councillors had a lot to thank the Tories for. Conservative group leader Michael Lavender said, "You have only produced a budget like this because the government has released councils from ring-fencing constraints and given you the freedom to manage the budget as you see fit. And it was the foresight of the last administration which foresaw all of these pressures and planned for it, and you have reaped the rewards." Mr Lavender went on to question whether the budget would be balanced in years to come. "There is little evidence that you have the courage to make the hard decisions. You are just making complaints about this government and grant damping," he said. Previously, Conservative councillors criticised the Labour administration, saying that with just under £12.5 million in reserves, the council could find itself in financial trouble. However, a council spokesman said the reserves, known as unallocated balances, had gone up from £10.6 million in 2006 when the Tories were in power to the current £12.5 million. Labour councillors in Enfield have called on Cabinet Ministers to demand that the controversial Health and Social Care Bill is dropped. A motion from the Labour group at last week's full council meeting urged ministers to join the majorities of the general public, health professionals and this council to save the NHS and demand the government withdraw the Health and Social Care Bill immediately. The bill, which has faced widespread opposition from many healthcare professionals, is expected to pave the way for more private firms to carry out procedures on NHS patients, and would see local health budgets controlled by groups of GP known as commissioning consortia. Alif Kazimoglu, the Labour chairwoman of the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Panel, said the NHS is under attack from the Tories. At a time of unprecedented cuts, it will cost money and destabilise the service. These are ideological reforms. It is an insult that already overstretched GPs are being asked to do the job of managers and accountants. Maybe Andrew Lansley's idea is to run our hospitals into the ground and let private companies come in and take it over. However, Tory councillor Mike Rye said these were powerful reasons for pushing the bill through, and that without reforms the economy would not be able to cope. He added, "If we don't go through with it, the consequences are significant. If the economy isn't fighting fit, then it will be Enfield that suffers." The motion was passed after all Labour councillors voted in favour. An MP who organised a jobs fair last month for more than 16,000 of the borough's unemployed has made an impassioned defence of the government's work scheme. Nick Dubois, writing for the Tory grassroots blog Conservative Home, claimed the Labour legacy of simply handing money to passive citizens should be learned from and rejected. We are the party of the individual, the party that stands on the side of 1 million who have been unemployed for 10 years, and tells each and every one of them that they can do better, and assists them in this pursuit, instead of simply handing them a cheque and giving up. The Enfield North MP's defence of the scheme came in the same week the government appeared to water down the programme in which young, unemployed people perform unpaid work experience with a company by announcing that the benefits would not be docked if they backed out of the scheme. The policy U-turn came after the plan was widely criticised as being little more than slave labour, as unemployed young people aged between 16 and 24 who take part in the scheme have to work 25 to 30 hours a week unpaid. But speaking to the Enfield Advertiser, the MP defended the plan. For a young person who has never worked, this scheme can help them get used to interacting with people and learn to understand the discipline of work. The MP, who prides himself on building his own business from scratch, dismissed the suggestion that the work programme, which some larger companies such as Burger King pulled out of following bad publicity, was merely a cheap form of menial labour. "That is a misunderstanding of the work programme," he said. But Mark Dunk, speaking on behalf of Right to Work campaign, said there should not be any young person forced to work for no pay. Everyone on every training scheme should receive the minimum wage or above. An academy which boasts of record-breaking improvements in exam results has come under fire from a parent furious over coursework confusion at the school. Stuart Farrington, a parent of a GCSE student at Oasis Academy Hadley in Bell Lane, Enfield, has hit out at the underhand manner in which he claims the school decided to enter Year 11 pupils for a double whammy of coursework for their ICT exam. According to Mr. Farrington, the school is forcing his daughter to complete 60% of her GCSEs before the end of the school term, after the school entered the entire year for the wrong coursework section. The outraged parent told the Advertiser, "I'm concerned about the underhand, deceitful manner in which they have dealt with this issue. I have been questioning them since March last year." He claims that the usual plan of splitting the work over 2 years was abandoned by teachers because his daughter's usual teacher was absent, leading to a communication breakdown at the school. He's furious that parents were not told about the change. But the school's principal, Lynn Dawes, has categorically denied Mr. Farrington's accusations that there was any mix-up. Following the 2-week absence of their teacher on compassionate grounds, the decision was made to move the submission of the coursework to summer 2012, so as to allow the students sufficient time to complete and submit their assessment, the principal said. This was communicated to the students. She admitted that a mistake had been made in not keeping the parents up to date on the change, but stressed, "We did not try to cover up what has happened." The parent is also accusing the school of piling pressure on his daughter with endless after-school and Saturday sessions to force the students to catch up. But according to Miss Dawes, this is standard practice in the school for all students in all disciplines and has at no time been compulsory. She said, "As an academy, we offer our students every opportunity and extensive support to study and prepare for examinations. This includes lunchtime and after-school sessions, Saturday and holiday revision sessions. Our students appreciate this additional support for exam preparation." A video shop in Palmer's Green has closed down after 30 years because of increased competition from the internet. Aaron Raichura, aged 56, owner of Video Fair in Green Lanes, said he was forced to close down his DVD rental shop because more people were now downloading films from the internet. However, the businessman said he was proud to have served the area for 3 decades and vowed to return to the high street soon with a new venture. He said, "This is an end of an era. People are saying how sorry they are that our shop is closing after being here for so long. But in the last 2 years, it just wasn't working. But I'm going to bounce back. When you're in business, you don't give up, and I will come back and start again with something new." The business, which opened in April 1982, was forced to downsize 3 years ago in a bid to reduce costs, but its new home has not worked out. Mr. Reichura said the shop's 3 staff had all found new jobs or were heading to university. A man has been remanded in custody after being charged with possessing 2 military assault rifles that can fire bullets up to 460 metres away. Mohammed Ismail, of age 29, of Ploughman's Close, Upper Edmonton, was arrested following a police search for property on Monday, February the 27th. Mr. Ismail is due to appear at Kingston Crown Court on May the 27th. A 23-year-old woman was also arrested in connection with the alleged offence. A champagne afternoon, tea for 2, a VIP tour of Tottenham Hotspur's White Hart Lane Stadium, and a Holt White's Bakery hamper are among some of the exclusive prizes on offer at a charity comedy night being held this weekend. The Night of Laughter and Luxurious Prizes has been organised by Gemma Hosking and Christina Rochford-Gardner, both from Enfield, in a bid to raise money and awareness for the Motor Neurone Disease Association. The duo have been inspired to new fundraising heights by their friend Eric Rivers, who was struck down with the degenerative illness in July 2010. "If you meet the Rivers family, you become totally captivated by them," said Gemma. "When you're with Eric, you're always laughing and joking, and a comedy night seemed just perfect." As well as top-of-the-range raffle prizes, the fundraisers have organised a lineup of comedians including Felix Dexter, Christian Riley, Paul T. Ayres and compere Gary Coleman, who will light up the Fox Pub in Green Lanes, Palmer's Green, on Saturday the 10th of March from 8:30. Although the event is sold out, people are still asking to be put on the waiting list for tickets, and donations continue to pour in. "Just yesterday, someone offered a week in their villa in Spain as a raffle prize," said Gemma. Last year, the television series DIY SOS stepped in to carry out a miraculous transformation of the Rivers family home in Enfield, making it easier for Derek, his wife Davina, and their 3 daughters to properly enjoy their house. Christina added, "Finance is an additional worry, and hopefully this will reassure Eric that there will always be long-term support for the girls." A blind woman who was shocked at how difficult it was for her to travel around London after moving from Japan has called for more volunteers to help the disabled. Constance Lee, who moved from Tokyo to Enfield town last April following the earthquake and tsunami that devastated Japan, says catching trains and buses is far harder for people with disabilities than in her native country. The 53-year-old receives help 1 day a month from an Enfield Association for the Blind volunteer to fill in forms and seek an acupuncture job in Enfield, but the organisation has such a long waiting list it cannot help more. Mrs. Lee said, "Last year when the tsunami hit, I decided to come over here to be with my family, but I found that despite its reputation for welfare, in Britain it was quite difficult to get around. People will always help if you ask, but on the overground trains they don't announce the stations, and it makes it hard to know where you are. I've been on a few buses that were going to the wrong destination. I think people should volunteer more. If you had help, you know how valuable that is." The Singapore-born woman first came to London in 1980 to train as a physiotherapist, before winning a scholarship to Japan as an acupuncturist, despite her sight loss. But after 8 years of long-distance commuting, incredibly she kept up her job 6,000 miles away in Tokyo, despite marrying her British husband 8 years ago. She decided to move permanently to London after the earthquake disaster last March, which killed 15,000 people. Volunteer Services Manager Christina Hind said that blind people needed help getting to the shops, dealing with post and handling phone calls. She added, "Not all of our home visit clients face such daunting challenges as Constance, but they all need weekly or fortnightly support for an hour and a half to assist with everyday tasks." For more information about becoming a volunteer, call the charity on 020 8423 5141. A campaigner opposed to a bid to build homes and flats on a former university site has warned the fight is not over. Kim Coleman of the Campaign for Cat Hill said the decision by Enfield council officers to recommend planning application be refused for 260 houses and flats on the former Middlesex University site was good news, but said councillors could still vote against their advice. Officers said in a report on Monday that the planning application by Housing Association London and Quadrant should be refused at a special meeting tonight, Wednesday, citing concerns about harming a protected species of newt and the lack of funding for highway improvements nearby. Ms. Coleman said, "This is great news, but the fight is not over. I would urge all residents opposed to this development to come out in force by turning up on Wednesday night. The final decision will be made by the councillors, and we need to show them the strength of our feeling." The campaign group has a 20-minute slot in tonight's 7:30 p.m. meeting at Ashmole Academy in Cecil Road, Southgate, to deliver a speech setting out its objections to the development. Developer L&Q has reduced the number of homes from 272 to 260 in response to concerns, with flats located near the border and near ponds where the great newt species is found, now removed from the plans. But officers said the proposals could endanger the newts and voiced concerns that the size of the blocks of flats would be higher than the tree line. A controversial gaming arcade built 4 years ago in Southgate, amid community opposition, has ceased trading. The Agora Amusements in the Broadway Southgate Circus was the subject of a campaign by locals in 2008, who said that the over-18 gambling arcade being opened next to Southgate College could lure students into skipping lessons. The Planning Inspectorate overruled Enfield Council's planning committee, who had said the premises, opened by Ablethird Limited, should not be given permission. The business was bought by investment fund Marwin Management Partners in November, after Ablethird went into administration, and the gaming arcade has now been closed down. Enfield Southgate MP David Burrows, who backed the opposition campaign in 2008, said it was a matter of good riddance. He said, "I've been a long-standing opponent of the gaming arcade. Agora was never welcome in Southgate, and now the public have voted with their feet and money." The Enfield Independent had not received a comment from Martin Management Partners at the time of going to press. Enfield Green Party is to screen Fanny Armstrong's climate change film The Age of Stupid at the King's Head in Winchmore Hill next Monday. As part of the Climate Week, the 2009 film, starring the late Pete Postlethwaite, will be shown at the pub in the Green to get people talking about climate change. Enfield Green Party member Douglas Corker said, "The film is an important reminder about the dangers of climate change, if more is not done to stop global warming." Postlethwaite stars as a man living alone in a devastated world of 2055, watching archive footage of 2008 and asking why we didn't stop climate change when we had the chance. The film will be followed by a panel discussion about climate change with Alexis Roll, the author of Communities, Councils and a Low-Carbon Future. Mr. Coker said, "I think the economy has put the climate change issue back in the back seat, but this film is a reminder that shouldn't be the case. There are green alternatives to the current course the government is taking." The film will start at 7:30 p.m. Entry is free, but there'll be a collection at the door. We've now reached the end of side 1 of this tape. Please stop your machine now, take out the cassette, turn it over, and start side 2.